Hi, welcome to the Jessica Rector Show. I'm your host, Jessica Rector. I'm super excited about my guest today. We've known each other for almost 26 years, have worked together a few times when we were younger, and have lived in different states for most of our friendship. I thought she'd be the perfect guest for today's show, and she cleverly came up with the title of our episode, and we may just turn it into a monthly series called Thinking Out Loud with Jess and Les. Please help me welcome my BFF of 26 years, Leslie Tenho Lane. Woo!
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so before we dig deep into our Thinking Out Loud episode, tell everybody, just so they're kind of up to date, a little bit on how we met.
We met working together. It was probably a little over 25 years ago at a restaurant called Tippin's. And the first encounter that I remember was I was bussing a table of yours. And
now, Tippin's was a restaurant where we had to bus our own tables. There wasn't a busboy or something like that.
Right. But I do remember now that we've been through working there together, I do remember we really appreciated when other people would come in and help you, even though it wasn't their duty necessarily, but they were always the ones that were go-getters and always helpful. But this was our first encounter, and I remember bussing your table, and you came over and you grabbed your tip and walked away, and I thought, oh my gosh, we're not going to get along at all. But yeah, here we are 25 years later.
I know. I think it'll be 26 years in just a couple months, or maybe towards the end of this year. And I don't remember that incident at all. And I always think it's so rare that I didn't say thank you or acknowledge it or something, just for the fact of the matter is because I didn't think a lot of people back then did bus other people's tables. Right. So I don't know if maybe I was like focused on something else or, was busy like with my mind doing something else. But it just surprises me that I didn't at least say thank you, because that wasn't like an everyday occurrence where everybody's going around bussing everybody else's tables.
Well, and now that I've known you this long, that's rare. So you were probably just, like you said, focused and not even thinking about it, because you would not do that normally.
Yeah, no. And I probably would have been like, what? Someone's bussing my table? That's awesome. And I want to make sure that I go out and bus your table to like give back, right? Mm-hmm. So today's episode, Thinking Out Loud with Jess and Les. Thank you for that clever name of that. So we are going to talk about what we can and can't live without. And we got some feedback from other people. We sent this question out to people and basically said, hey, what have you realized that you can live without, and what have you realized you can't live without? So we're going to share a lot of what other people said and just have a conversation around that, because it's interesting, I think, when change and uncertainty and things are thrust upon us, how we adapt and adjust to those things, and basically how sometimes our perspective can change and switch throughout that. So do you have one that kind of was like, oh, that somebody shared that you want to share with everybody?
One that stood out to me was a person who said they can live without their physical office.
Yes.
Being at home, and, because some people feel like if they're at home, they're not as productive. Mm-hmm. But there are some that in their element, they can wake up, get started. They may be in their PJs or whatever. Maybe it's just a comfort thing. Mm-hmm. But that friend said she really enjoyed being home, and she felt like she was getting a lot more done, actually.
And what's interesting about that is that I think a lot of organizations before this feared having their people working at home, that they wouldn't be productive and that they wouldn't get that much done, or that they'd have to micromanage them. And so having someone say, I actually can get more done. And I think it will be interesting to see what organizations come back from this saying, if they're going to implement more of their people working at home. Maybe they'll do away with big office spaces that will actually save them in overhead as well, and let their people have more of a flexibility. But I'm wondering, when the person that said that, I'm wondering if they have kids and how they're able to manage the kid thing, because saying, oh, like I save the time going into the office and coming away from the office, for one. But I also like the environment of my house. But how do you then juggle kids and working from home?
Yeah, that's a good question. She does not have kids at home. She has a daughter that's in college who just recently came home since the college is closed, and her husband works. So yeah, I think it'd be a lot different when you have young kids that are constantly interrupting or constantly needing something, and you feel, you're home now, you want to go do stuff with them. Right. You don't want to keep pushing them away and, oh, I got to work. So yeah, I think that's definitely because she doesn't have young kids at home that need her when she's there.
Yeah. And I've heard from a lot of people that are working at home that they're getting more burned out because they do have young kids at home. They're not knowing how to balance that. And, after a while you set into a new norm, but you don't know how to balance, because like you said, you want to go out and play with the kids, but you got this work to get done. So they find themselves working later. If emails come in at 10 o'clock at night, they find themselves answering those emails. And part of it is for job security, right? They feel like, ooh, I've got to get to it because I don't want to be let go, especially during this time. So I find a lot of people have said that they're more burned out because they don't have those set boundaries. Although they like working at home better, it's also in different ways more stressful because they don't know how to create, or they haven't created those boundaries for themselves. And basically saying, okay, this time I've got to get work done. This time is kid time. But also if you have young kids, they need to be entertained, and you don't just want to sit them in front of the TV.
And that kind of takes me into something someone else said. One person said she can live without homeschooling.
I am on that boat.
I don't have to homeschool mine. Well, actually, mine was a senior this year. And I wouldn't be able to homeschool her because she's probably smarter than me now. And the way they teach now is so different than when I was in school.
Yes.
But she has small children, and probably several different reasons. One would be why, the curriculum is so different. The other thing is you're just the constant having to take care of kids. Some people they don't like that. They like having the break of going to work. Yes. They like having the teacher they can talk to and check on their work, but they don't have to, understand everything about it.
There's parts of Blaze's schoolwork that I'm like, huh? I have to Google because I'm like, oh, part, whole. How did I ever make it through the first grade without knowing what part, whole is? Well, what the heck is that? And so I had to look it up, and I was like, okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But, and also it's so long ago, we don't remember a lot of stuff that we did or didn't do in first grade. But it's just interesting to say, oh, I don't recall using that. But when you have some label on it, like part, whole, you're like, I don't know what that is. But then it's like, okay, you can see how that might be useful. Or like a number line. I'm like, I don't recall ever using that. How am I using that? And also I think for me, adults tend to think so much more advanced if you have those younger kids, but to break it down to, how do you not understand 2 + 2 is 4? Because it's something that we just automatically know, but then to break it down into their language, and especially with me, it'll teach you patience like no one's business, and it'll teach you it real fast, or you're going to get frustrated. But to also find different ways to explain the same concept. Right.
So there's a reason why people go to school for elementary education. I mean, there's a certain way children learn better. And, some of these parents are probably feeling down on themselves that I should be able to, get this concept across to them. And
yes,
you may not know the way to do that. So
yes. And I even had a conference with the teacher way before this happened, and was basically saying, we're going over this stuff. And she said, well, tiny brains learn differently than adults. And she was talking and explaining it. And she said, and I know this because I used to teach kindergarten and now I'm teaching first. And she said, and she was explaining it. And I'm like, huh? Like, I just don't understand how he doesn't understand that though. And she's like, exactly. And so it becomes difficult even getting the language to explain it to them in certain ways. And then also that resistance. I don't want to write. Do I have to write that long? Do I got to do this? Mommy, what? How many times can I tell him, you got to capitalize the first letter when you start a new sentence? Oh, where's your punctuation? So I can definitely see how parents are saying, yes, I can live without homeschooling. I heard someone say, homeschooling was never on my bucket list. And I thought, that is so me. Yes. Like if it was, I would have signed up for that a long time ago. So I think integrating stuff like that into our everyday work, and like having to work and get certain things done with work, can be a challenge, especially when it's thrust upon you. Like, it's not something I signed up for, but when you literally have no experience teaching someone young those like basic things. I had a girlfriend said, Jessica, I think you're going to be amazing at it. You taught me algebra whenever I was in college. I'm like, totally different teaching algebra to an adult than 13 minus 4 to a first grader. It's different because I can speak in some kind of language that we're on the same foundation, as opposed to parenting in itself is a challenge, but then when you get something like that, and especially when it's so second nature to us, how do we say it in language they understand? But also, how do we make sure we don't lose our patience because we're having to repeat it multiple times? And I heard someone else say, after all this, I think people are going to really appreciate teachers a lot more. What is one that you had that someone can't live without?
Well, funny enough, a lot of people said Mexican food.
Really?
Which you can get Mexican food at the store and cook it yourself, but I think it's really just
the experience.
Going out, and maybe they cook better than you, which would be something I would say because I don't like my own cooking. But a lot of people seem to like Mexican food, but a lot of people said, just the restaurants and that experience of going out to eat.
Now, see, I put that down on, for myself, something I can live without.
So did I.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Something
because I eat out for lunch almost every day of the week. And I keep telling myself, okay, I'm going to bring my lunch to save money, but I just enjoy that experience. But I've loved being home and eating at home, and I can definitely give that up.
Yes.
So I think this will really help me save money.
I was going to say, and that's a bit, man, you'll see your pocketbook increase a lot when you do that, because the thing is you don't realize, like, just, it's only $5, or, it's only $6. Well, if you take even $5 over the course of a week, that's $25 over the course of a month. That's $100 you're spending out on food. Yeah.
And I will tell you, I spend more than 5. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe it's more like 150 that you'd be saving a month. I mean, what could you do with 150 more dollars a month? Think of it that way. But yeah, so I put that on mine. Like, I put sitting in restaurants. I like it every once in a while, but it's not something, even before this happened, it wasn't something that I was like, you know what? I really want to go out to eat. I really want to go sit in a restaurant, especially because I'm more of, let's go have fun. Let's have an experience. Let's do something having that experience. So sitting in a restaurant is never my idea of the ultimate fun. Like, ooh, let's ultimately go have fun. So it's interesting because I said that. I had some people said that they can do away with takeout food or pizza, eating pizza out. And they just said pizza. And I was like, really? Like, I don't eat pizza that often, but when I want pizza, it's not like there's an easy substitute for pizza. Well, like Mexican food, maybe it's not enchiladas, but maybe you'll have tacos. But pizza, there's really not any kind of substitute for pizza.
Yeah,
and it seems weird because for me, I don't crave pizza very often, but whenever I do, it's like, I want it.
Yeah.
And I want it now.
You gotta have it.
I got to have it. I know a few other people that are like that. They're like, oh my gosh, no, when I crave it, I crave pizza. I had someone say that they realize how little they really need. And I agree with that. It's like, I think we get caught up and more and more, more and more. And it's kind of a wake-up call that, and even whenever I was thinking about what can I live without and what can't I live without, I was really trying to think, what can't I live without? Like, I mean, I can live without most everything. Now, I probably wouldn't be an awesome, happy person every day, like without certain things, but it was kind of a struggle to say, what can't I really live without?
Right. Well, I was watching TV a couple of days ago, and you'd already asked me this question, so I'd already had it on my mind. And I don't watch the show very often, but I used to, and it's Little House on the Prairie. And I was watching that.
Not at all what I was thinking you were going to say.
I had already gotten many responses. And when I was watching that show, I'm not a technology person. I could live back in those days and be completely fine. Although if you took my phone from me now, you wouldn't think that's true. But I think what they had then, most people are saying that's all they need.
Yes.
They have their family. They have food in their house. They have communication, love. I mean, that's really it. God was one of the answers. They can't live without. That's all you need, really.
Yeah.
And I do think this will change the way people view material things here on out. I hope it does.
I think it'll change it in the short term. And then once things get, give it a couple years, people are going to be right back to where they are now. Like, I think it'll change it right now and, in a few months, maybe a year or two, but get back to people's norms, and they're going to get back to those I want kind of things too. One of the things that came up a lot was that they cannot live without, and you kind of mentioned it, human contact, interactions, the need to hug someone. I tell Blaze almost every day, because he's very much like, no, mommy, no hugs, no kisses, no. And kisses are disgusting. And I'm like, dude, you're 7. You're too young to already think that. So I basically have to fight him for it. And I tell him, everyone needs hugs. Everyone needs, well, I don't need hugs. And I'm like, Blaze, there's kids out there that don't get hugs, that don't get kisses, that don't get loves from their parents. And I said, and if you didn't get it, you would be very sad. And he says that now because he gets it all the time. And I do it more for myself than I do for him. That I need that because I'm with him every day. And it's like, he's the only one that I have that human contact with, like physical human contact with. I realize I need that. Like, I need to feel loved and cared for. And I think that's one of the best ways to get it is through just giving and receiving a hug. And I think what's been going on has allowed us to say, we may not physically be with someone, but how can we still have some kind of human contact? I was telling someone the other day, it was so funny that you and I have lived apart for probably 20 years, at least 20 years. And it took something like this for us to go, hey, we could play Yahtzee via Zoom.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And I thought, how did we not think about doing something like that before? Because we've lived apart for decades.
Yeah, how do we not play Scrabble online? We got to figure that one out.
Okay, that's funny. If there was a way to do that via Zoom, I would be all over it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So did you get anyone say anything about human contact interactions, things like that?
Yeah, a lot of them said either human contact or family hugs. That was a big one that most people said, and I agree. I've gone to work and I'll see someone, I'm like, my natural reaction is to go hug them, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can't stand it. Yeah, even if you think about someone you don't know and you're meeting someone, our human reaction is to shake their hand, just as a greeting. We don't just stand there and say, hi, nice to meet you. Just the human part of everyone is to physical human contact with them somehow, shaking their hand or hugging them. People say, I'm a hugger, and they'll hug you, stuff like that. And to basically have to say, ooh, 6 feet away,
Keep our distance. Another one that I really loved, they said that they can't live without, was that they really have to find a reason or a purpose for each day. And I love that because I think it's so easy when you're thrown into an unknown situation, you're having to work from home, or maybe you've been laid off, that you wake up and you're like, why am I getting up? Why not sleep till 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Like, what am I doing today? And sometimes that's just like scheduling your day out. But I love that it's like really finding a purpose for each day, because before we know it, weeks and months and years go by and we look back and say, what have I been doing? Has anything really changed? So being more intentional, I think, throughout the day.
Well, I've always admired that you're a very organized person, and I've always wanted to be that way, but I've just always been a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person. And so not when it first happened, but maybe a week after, I started making a list every day. I'd make it the day before of what I need to do. And I mean, wash my car, work out, just different things. And I would really check that list off so that I would be productive, because I can easily let myself get sucked into TV or Words with Friends, which I just deleted yesterday.
Yay!
Because I find myself just getting carried away into that. And it's like, by the time I've played Words with Friends for 2 hours, I'm like, I just spent 2 hours of my life doing that. No, I need to be doing something a little more meaningful.
You know what? I used to have when I was pregnant with Blaze, I had Words with Friends on my phone. And granted, this was 7 years ago, had it on my phone. And I was like you, I would spend an hour or two playing that. And I'm like, what? And so I ended up deleting it off my phone. Haven't had it on my phone since then, because I was like, I don't have any games on my phone, because I'm like, that is time that I can be spending doing something else, even if it's just hanging out with my boy. Like 2 hours playing a game like that by myself. It's not like I'm interacting with someone else. It's like a computerized game. So I was like, Jessica, you're not being productive. Some other people said they can live without crowds and traffic.
I got that one.
Okay, yeah. Sugar. Someone said alcohol, which I was like, awesome. That is so great, especially because alcohol sales have increased greatly during isolation quarantine time. In fact, in 1 week, alcohol sales increased by 55%. In times like this, when you have so much time by yourself and your thoughts can easily take over, and especially the uncertainty and everything that comes up, and your thoughts can go negative and think about all the what if scenarios and stuff. People self-medicate by drinking more alcohol. So I loved how someone was so self-aware and said, hey, I realized that even though I'm isolated in my house, I don't need the alcohol, meaning like even whenever they go out, like when it opens up and they go out to places again, they'll recognize, I don't need that drink.
Right.
So that's big. What about you? What's something that you have on either list?
Well, one thing that I thought was interesting is I feel like I can't live without the idea of freedom. It's not even necessarily a certain thing, but just knowing I can't go do something that I want to, I couldn't even tell you what it is I want to go do right now, but just knowing I can't do it, and I'm told no. It's not that I have a problem with authority. I just want to be able to go do the things that I want to do. So sometimes I think it gets in people's heads, because I started complaining to my fiance one day, and then I thought, well, I'm sitting here watching TV. I'm enjoying myself. I have nowhere I need to be, or I'm necessarily wanting to go. It's just our nature sometimes to complain, and I don't like that I can't go do what I want.
Yeah, or the idea of doing what you want.
Right.
It's not, because I found myself doing that too. I'm like, I really want to go do something. I don't really know what that thing is. I just want to get out of my house and do something and feel like I'm doing something. But I'm like, okay, first of all, you have no idea what that is. It's not like you're like, oh, I really want to go do X, Y, and Z. And then it's like, I mean, one thing that I probably should have put down on what I can't live without that I didn't was travel. Because first thing that hit my mind was we had a trip planned for the spring that I've had to cancel. So that's a bummer. So I think for me, that is what I did put down on my list that I can't live without is fun and playtime. And this time's really allowed me to tap more into that. Blaze used to tell me at the end of the night, he would say, Mommy, I can't go to sleep. I can't go to bed. We didn't have any fun or playtime today. We had no fun today. And he started saying that a few nights in a row. And I was like, what's up with that? So I had to start interjecting fun and playtime into our day. But what ended up happening in the process of my doing that was that I realized initially I was doing it for him. But what I realized is I needed it more than he needed it. Because, just think about the little things in your day that can stress you out, or when something doesn't go as planned, or when you were supposed to get things done at work and you didn't, and you start thinking about them, all those kind of things. I realize that when I do incorporate, and I'm very strategic and intentional with like literally scheduling fun and playtime into my day, because I can get so focused on work or so focused on a task that the whole day will get away from me. And it's like 8:00 at night and I'm like, oh, what are we having for dinner? So I have to be very strategic and put it in the calendar that I've got to have fun and playtime for at least an hour a day. And I realize although it serves him and helps him, it's actually better for me because it reduces stress and burnout and pressure. And it just allows me to laugh and relax a lot more. And I always tell people, like, that's the one thing we take out of our lives when we get busy and stressed is fun and playtime. And that's the number one thing we need. And so for me, it's having to be very intentional to make sure I have that fun and playtime.
Well, I hope that many parents are saying that same thing about being intentional of spending time with the kids. Because I mean, I look back when my kids were little and I see you and your videos and I'm like, did I really spend enough time with them? Which we have great relationships now, but I still feel like I could have really done a whole lot more with them than I did, and now it's too late. So hopefully people can look at this and not be negative about it and see it as, man, I got
an opportunity,
month and a half or two or whatever, however long it's going to be, to just be home with the kids and spend quality time with them.
And that's one of the things my mentor said. I said, what should I really be doing during this time? And he said, you can reach out to clients, check in on them. He said, but the number one thing you should be doing is spending time with Blaze. He said, because people think that this is going to be never ending and that, oh my gosh, this is going to last forever. And it's going to be so quick and it's going to end. And they're going to wish that they had spent more time with their kids. So even if I have a complete schedule in a day, I have to break it up and say, okay, 30 minutes at 1:00, I'm playing a game with Blaze, or 3:00, another 30 minutes. I've got to break it up. So it's not just all in a big chunk at the end of the day too, that I am strategic and I break it up, because it also breaks up whatever it is he's doing. And because he'll get bored and he'll come in here and distract me, but it also helps him engage with me in a different way. So it's something that we need to do as parents to help us, but we also need to do it to help our kids so they're not just sitting in front of a TV and brain dead at the end of the day. And one of the ways that I love having fun and playtime is playing games. I mean, I'm a big game person, but I realize it, and it's not just about winning the game, although that's fun.
You know much about it?
Yeah. I know a lot about it when it comes to you. Anyways, it's not just about winning, but I realize that especially when you're playing with a kid, and teaching them how to do it, you can help them learn how to be strategic or how to be intentional with certain moves. And it'll change your perspective and how you're playing the game too. Like he'll do stuff and I'm like, I didn't even think of that. How did I not think of that? Or he'll make up, like we're playing Clue. And he said, Mommy, I have a cool game to play. So he put up all the 6 Clue people up against this cardboard. And the game was you had to take the dice and you had to knock over. It was like bowling with the Clue people. knock them over. And every one that you knocked over, you got a weapon. And so if I knocked over 3, I took 3 weapons. If he knocked over 4, he would take weapons from me. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it ended up, he just totally made it up. It ended up, I was like, man, this is almost better than the game Clue itself, because just to see how many people you can knock over. Oh my gosh, it was so hilarious. The thing is you can also learn from them different ways of doing things if you allow yourself the opportunity to just engage and to be present with them. Or even if you're going on a walk with them. We'll play laser tag as we're going on a walk, or hide and seek, or scavenger hunt, stuff like that, incorporating other things in, because he's always like, another walk, that's so boring. We got to be able to do something else on the walk. So it's also, how can we use that creativity and that innovative side of our brain that sometimes we just don't tap into very often as adults. We just keep doing the same things that we know.
Well, and I think it's also important to take this time to show our kids how to be when there's, a crisis or something happening unexpected that's not good.
Yeah.
They're looking at us to find out how to deal with those things. So, when you're being intentional with them, or being positive, or going for a walk, and, doing those things that you love to do, and you're positive about it.
Yeah.
You're teaching them life skills.
That's so true.
And I think a lot of times we're just so negative, and it's rubbing off on them. I feel like positivity breeds positivity. So just try to be mindful of when they're around, and look at it as a way to connect and, do positive things.
That's so true. That leads me to, one person said they can't live without their mindset and their faith or learning, even if it's something small. They were like, I just have this desire and this crave really to learn something. Someone else said their health, especially during this time when so many people are struggling with their health. And then someone said they can't live without Amazon. And I just thought that was so funny. It's like, Amazon. Well, what did we do before Amazon? Like, how did we, like, it just goes back to that, everything being at our fingertips, right? We're wanting those things at our fingertips, and Amazon, we can get everything, and we can get everything super fast. So any last ones that you have on the list that you want to share? And what were yours? What were your can and cans? I shared mine. Mine was sitting in restaurants I can live without, and fun and playtime and travel I can't.
Mine was, eating at restaurants. I can give that up. I can't do without hugs. I'm definitely a hugger. I had someone actually say to me, we were about to play in a pool tournament, and which is another thing that I can't live without. And I went to hug her, and she said, I'm not a hugger. And I thought, what? She hugged me, but she told me she wasn't a hugger, but she hugged me anyway. And I just thought, that's just not natural. It's just crazy. So I can't live without that. I like that human touch. One thing I've been doing a lot is getting up in the mornings and having coffee with Roger, and can't give that up.
That's
and being
awesome.
intentional about communicating. That's the most important thing, not just with him, but my kids, with anyone.
And I think that's the biggest thing, that we all are more intentional and strategic, because it's not going to last. And even when it ends, that we continue with what we're doing during this time, because it really builds our family or our community or our conversations, or people we work with. Like, it builds those deeper relationships, and that's what it's about, having those interactions with people.
I agree.
Thank you so much for being here. Any last words that you want to share with anyone regarding what they can and can't live without? Thinking out loud with Jess and Les.
Think wisely about what's really important to you. Keep that human interaction up, and I think you'll be good.
Awesome. Thanks so much, BFF, for being here. We will have to do it again. Yay. We'll have to do it again. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want you to think about what you can and what you can't live without, and through this time, how your perspective has changed, and how even when things go back to quote unquote normal, how you will continue to live, and how you will continue to grow and thrive. And what happens when change and uncertainty are thrust upon you? Are you able to thrive because of it, or in spite of it? Or do you let those negative thoughts kind of take over and spiral you down because it's easy to do? How are you being more intentional, more strategic, and more interactive with those around you and the things that you're doing throughout your day? So write to us. Let us know what you can and can't live without. You can do that at jessICAREctor.com. We'll see you next time. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.